Evening all. Well, it's been a kind of a strange news cycle this week. Not altogether an enjoyable one. There have been some stories, and I've seen kind of behaviours in this early days of this general election as we were building up to it. And I find myself here on Sunday evening feeling kind of drained and slightly disheartened. Not disheartened that I'm going to put this off, but it just hasn't been a good week overall, and I'll explain during the course of the show. So I'm going to start off with a story that happened earlier on in the week, which was Kay Burley supposedly interviewing James Cleverley MP, the Conservative Party chairman. So she was due to interview him, and he didn't show. So she did an interview with an empty chair because she's got tough questions. And Cleverley was avoiding those tough questions because she's this woman speaking truth to power with her tough questions. And he was too cowardly. But that's not what really happened. You see, Cleverley had been also booked to appear on Talk Radio, and originally he was booked to be interviewed by Sky at a different time, but Sky then changed the time slot on him, and he was committed to giving the interview to Talk Radio. So he said this, and then Talk Radio put out an official statement saying he was on our show, he can't be in two places at once. And that should be the end of it. You know, once you get your hand caught in a cookie jar, it's probably best to confess that, you know, you shouldn't have been raiding the cookie jar. So what do? Do you say, okay, this isn't the battle we fight today. Okay, Cleverley got away with this one. There'll be another battle. We'll try and get him some other time, and just walk away from an obviously erroneous narrative. Or do you double down? Well, this is what Burley and people who are against the Conservative Party, the leftists and the FBPs, they doubled down. And I read one idiotic comment on Twitter from someone that was responding to the Talk Radio tweet. And she said, well, I know which version I believe, and it's Burley's and not you. And this was just her believing what she wanted to believe. This is her assertion of which version to believe. It was not rooted in any facts, not rooted in any evidence. It's just her feels. And again, this is the thing. When you are confronted with truth, with facts, that you just put the facts in front of you, and the facts don't support your narrative, what do? You walk away, which you should, or do you double down? And this is something I noticed throughout the week, and I'll get back to it later on towards the end of the episode, about those who double down when the facts are against them are the people you really should watch out for. They're the really dishonest. They're the rats in the woodpiles. They're not good people to have around, because they think lying and deceiving and smearing people is acceptable. So we'll get back to that later on. I did an ironic smile. I try and do the ironic Jeff Norcott eyebrow raise, Roger Moore. I can't really do it without looking like a pirate with constipation. But I got a wry smile this week from a news story, and it was from Bernie Sanders, where he tweeted out that there was a local election in America, and people were protesting, and I think his political opponents were saying, well, the result was wrong. It should be rerun. This election result should be rerun because we think there was something wrong with the result. And Bernie Sanders says you cannot overturn the popular vote of the people. See where I'm going with this? So the next time some prominent Remainer, like Alistair Campbell, like Alistair People's Vote Campbell, Femi, David Lammy, any of those, Joe Morn QC, Gina Miller, anybody tweets out about people's votes and all that, I can just quote Bernie Sanders now. I did. I've taken a screen grab of Bernie Sanders' tweet, and I'm just going to use it against every prominent Remainer. Can't overturn a popular vote, Bernie Sanders says. Breaking news. This evening, Keith Vaz, MP, says he's not going to be standing again for Parliament, for the Labour Party. Yeah, this is great news. Since the late 90s, I've seen Vaz's name connected with various scandals, really vote rigging and gerrymandering, and then the latest revelations. And he always seemed to get away with it, always seemed to bounce back from these scandals and avoid an investigation, but no more. And so he's jumping before he's pushed. But originally I was going to talk about the other big name that resigned from Labour and won't be standing again. That's Tom Watson, their Deputy Prime Minister. Well, not Prime Minister yet, but Deputy Leader. Has resigned under a cloud, and it looks like the Labour Party's imploding. Not that you would get that from their supporters on social media. The Labour Party is in complete disarray, and only blind loyalty from, frankly, ignorant voters. And when I say ignorant voters, I don't mean traditional Labour heartlands, because they can see things, that the traditional Labour working classes from traditional Labour districts, they can see the truth because they've got lived experience and common sense. But it's kind of like the metropolitan, young, university-educated ones that are just blind and ignorant. What was the point of going to university if you're just going to come out ignorant? Education, education, education. Wasted. Absolutely wasted. It's another hollow promise from Tony Blair. But Labour's taken a huge hit, and only blind devotion is keeping them going at this point. But speaking of Labour's woes, one of the more bizarre stories I saw this week concerned a prospective parliamentary candidate for the Labour Party called Gideon Bull. Now, Gideon Bull described a political opponent in his constituency, which he's contesting at Clacton. He described a Jewish lady as Shylock, and of course there was calls that this was anti-Semitic. His defence was that he didn't know that calling someone Shylock was an insult. You call a Jewish person Shylock, according to Gideon Bull, that's not an insult. It's not meant to be disparaging. Well, what is it meant to be then, if not that? And then again, Bull's supporters and Labour supporters in general were rushing to his defence, saying, "Well, I didn't know Shylock had any negative content. Calling somebody who's Jewish Shylock, that doesn't have negative connotation. I never knew. We didn't read Shakespeare at school. Education, education, education. Remember? Yeah, wonderful Labour policy. But the thing is, I didn't read The Merchant of Venice or see any production of it until I was in my late 20s. I mean, we didn't do it at school. We did other Shakespeare plays when I was at secondary school. But the thing is that everybody knew who Shylock was. Everybody knows the bare bones. The Merchant of Venice, the most important, not necessarily the main character in The Merchant of Venice, but he's certainly the most famous character in that play. And everybody knows him, and that he's Jewish, and that he says the line, "If you prick us, do we not bleed?" Yeah, this is really famous. It has The Merchant of Venice and the character Shylock have cultural cachet. Whether you've seen a production of The Merchant of Venice or even read it, it just resonates. It's just the character and a line from the play that people know. So Shylock said, "If you prick us, do we not bleed?" Labour 2019 go, interesting idea. Let's see. Now, former Speaker of the House, John Bercow, is serialising his thoughts in the newspapers, where he's going to tell all. No, like he's been the soul of discretion all this time, and tell us what he really thinks about Brexit and the Conservative Party. Yeah, we know, John. We know what you think. You're a partisan hack. You should never have had that job, and you brought nothing but shame and disgrace in the office of Speaker of the House of Commons, and you have rendered the House of Commons inoperable, goodness knows for how long. Now get out. Finally, on the biscuit, a strange story that had left me with a sour taste in my mouth. So, Fraser Nelson, the editor of The Spectator, put out this tweet a couple of days ago saying that he thought that amnesty for illegal immigrants already in the UK was a good idea. It's what was needed. And I disagree, and a lot of other people in the circle. When this tweet went out, it wasn't from Fraser Nelson direct. I read it on somebody else's account, and they said it was bad, and I agreed that it was bad, and lots of people agreed that it was a bad policy. One person said it was an extreme policy, and I disagreed. I think it's a bad policy. I don't agree with it. I don't support the policy. But I didn't think the word extreme necessarily fitted the idea. Now, remember, it's not official policy. This is what Fraser Nelson thinks. I didn't think it was an extreme bad opinion, because, and here's my reasoning, is that I could think of a couple of other policies on immigration that I think are worse, and I would put at the extreme end, such as the idea of giving non-UK citizens the right to vote in UK elections, or a complete open borders policy. So I consider that extreme, because for me the word extreme means at the far end of something. And I considered Fraser Nelson's idea to be one step back from extreme, just in the very bad category, but not extreme. So yeah, this shouldn't have been a problem. I don't like the policy. Nobody else in this discussion thread liked the policy. We were all opposed to it. However, because I didn't endorse the use of the word extreme, and my reasoning, again, I just want to elaborate on this. My reasoning here is that once you use the word extreme to describe something bad, if something worse comes along, you've got no linguistic wriggle room. Okay, this is something that Douglas Murray says about when people start using the term far right all the time just to mean the mainstream right. Once you've gone to the far right, where can you go? So now everything becomes polarized down, and we don't have any language covering the middle ground, or covering the points up to the extreme points. We don't have language to describe that, because we've shoved everything to the extremes. Okay, I hope I make myself clear on that. So we had a situation here on social media where everybody in this discussion was against Fraser Nelson's idea. And yet, because I didn't want to use the word extreme to describe the idea, a couple of people said I endorsed Fraser Nelson's idea, which is completely untrue. I said on 4 different occasions, I think it's bad policy, and I don't agree with it, and I don't support it. I said that 4 times. But I said I wouldn't go and call it extreme. And what happened was that one person in particular was just coming at me all the time, saying I was endorsing. No, he was completely twisting my words. And even when I rebuked, not rebuked, when I debunked him, he kept coming back at me and then just pushing that I was supportive. And a few other people joined in and were backing him up. And I said, go back and reread the thread. Go back and see at any point, do I support this? And the idiot, because he is a massive idiot, what he did was that he screen grabbed one of my comments where I said, I don't think it's an extreme idea. But the idiot captured right at the bottom of the screen grab the part where I said, I think this is a bad idea. Okay, so he debunks himself. But like what I said earlier, when the evidence doesn't support your narrative, you should back off. You should just give up at that point and just go, I'm boxed into a corner here. I don't have enough facts on my side. I've got to get out. But he doubled down, and he doubled down again, quadrupled down. And I was left with a position. I was dealing with this. This was happening in real time. It was happening one tweet fast after another. And what happened was that I started to realize that this person is a dishonest charlatan, that he's in this little discussion group under false pretenses. I'm convinced of this. Because the language he was using, he was smearing, he was lying, he was being dishonest. When confronted with proof to the contrary, he refused to accept it. And it wasn't just me, I keep saying rebuke, but debunking. I had two other people on my side, and a number of other people were clicking likes on my tweets. But there were two people who spoke up and said, Rubber has said he is against this policy of amnesty. And so, he got really nasty. He was getting aggressive, and he was pushing my buttons as well, because if there's one thing I really hate and will get me angry, and the red mist descends, it's being accused of lying when I haven't been, or it's when I'm being smeared. I mean, there's a number of reasons. It goes right back to my childhood, actually. I read a psychology report once that said, you never forget the first time somebody falsely accuses you of something, and despite your protestations, you get blamed for something you didn't do. And apparently the psychology report was saying that apparently this stays with you right into adulthood, and I think it has with me. It's not something, I don't say it as justification. I'm just saying this is part of my character. And if you followed me when we had I was caught up in this thing where I was falsely accused of child abuse by a fictitious astronomy in New Zealand. It was weird. I think I mentioned this in the previous biscuit, the Benmore Peak Observatory, which doesn't exist, but somebody pretending that they run this observatory. I started making false accusations about me, and I just got livid, and I had to push it. I had to find out who this person was, and then I found out they run a fake account, and they are conning people into thinking they run an observatory, and that observatory runs a learning program for schools. So there was a bit of projection from them. And so I was getting the alarm bells again from this guy, and just thinking, he's using the language of the left smear, the left lie, the left double down, and he's doing exactly this tactic. And I just thought, we got a rat in the organisation. We got somebody here in this group under false pretenses. And be warned, everybody. If somebody's using the tactics of the left to punch right, you've got a wrong in the ear, mists. I firmly believe that. You've got to watch your back sometimes. And I know this from experience. I'm 52 years old, for goodness sake, and I've seen lots of internecine struggles at work and in organisations and in clubs and things like that, and I can spot the wrong uns. They tip their hand at some point. So what did I learn from it? Anyway, in the end, I blocked him, and I blocked about 3 people. And I've got another 2 people who I don't think they said anything particularly egregious, but they were backing this troublemaker, this dishonest troublemaker. They were backing him. And so I've kind of got them, they're on a kind of what I call an amber warning list, put it that way. And I've blocked 3 people. And it's not something I wanted. This was a nice little community where I thought we could agree to disagree on things. And that's the irony is, everybody in that discussion opposed the policy. Okay? There was a weird thing. We're all against it. But here's another thing. They wanted to compel me to use a word, compelled speech. Another leftist tactic. And you gotta, as I said, you gotta watch out for the rats in the woodpiles. Because do you think any kind of right-leaning or centrist or classical liberal discussion group out there is not going to get infiltrated at some point. Come on, it's once you start getting known, once you start getting a few clicks, likes, subscribers, they're going to put people into your midst to stir up trouble. And the thing is the clue is in this guy's profile, because he calls his account after a character from a British TV series, a man who enters a political group under false pretenses and is prepared to lie, smear, and even murder his opponents in order to get to the top. That's what he calls himself. He calls himself after that character. So, what have I learned from all this? Well, one, couple of Jordan Peterson's rules. I forget the numbers. I think it's 3 and 5. But the one is about honesty. You've got to be honest. And I felt by not using the word extreme, I felt I was being honest. This was my honest opinions. I think it was bad, but I didn't think it was the worst it could possibly get. So I'm being honest, and I stood my ground. And you've got to be honest, like that lady who was saying, well, I know which version I believe. That's not an honest position. There's so much dishonesty in that. The left are riddled with it. Okay? And let's not become like them. Let's not use their tactics. Let's not go down that route. Let's not lie and smear in order to advance ourselves. Okay, no matter how tempting it is. Jordan Peterson himself says it is a struggle sometimes to remain honest. When the easy option is just to bend the truth, stretch it a little bit to get ahead. And the other thing is the thing about being precise in your speech. And I think early on, because a lot of other people who subsequently have been very nice and supportive spoke to me privately afterwards, and they accept, they think this policy is extreme, and they disagree with me that I don't think it's extreme, but they understand that I'm against the policy too. That it's a matter of degree and opinion, and they misunderstood what I meant at first. It's a bit weird because I did say I'm against the policy 4 times. So it's a lesson. I need to be precise in my speech, because there are some people out there who take every single word absolutely literally. And if I take a linguistic shortcut, they won't get it. But at the same time, it's a lesson to everybody else that, if you're going to accuse somebody of something, you've got to be precise yourself. And you've got to understand what people are saying. If you don't understand what somebody means by what they write, you ask them. Ask them to clarify. I saw this tonight with another tweet where it was Raimi Usami, who said they wouldn't wear a poppy on Remembrance Sunday. And people just went after it, saying, "Oh yeah, you support wars, you know that." But for me, I didn't think that was the right approach. My question to her was, why? And then she came out with an answer that I thought was really bad. That seemed more about herself than about any deeper significance. But just by asking the question, why? I let her hang herself with her own words. And sometimes that's better. Sometimes, going in constant confrontation isn't the way. Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Simple question, why? Or what did you mean by that? Or please elaborate. Or please clarify. It's so much better than just attack, vicious, the fangs out, the claws out all the time, punching right, punching everybody. You don't measure up to my standards, you've got to be punched. In the long run, all you can wind up is just devastation and ashes all around you. It doesn't make you a better person. It doesn't advance your cause. You don't win people to your side by being just constantly attack and mean-spirited, dishonest. Think you can get away with it. It's a bit of a bummer. This is just me laying it out here. Now, if people, I might get some hits from this. I might get lose some subscribers, lose some followers. I think it's just more important that I maintain my integrity on this one. I do not feel a shred of guilt for what I said. Just my honest take. And again, I keep coming back to this point. We all agree on principle. We all agreed on principle. But because I won't use compelled speech, some people might cut me out, unsubscribe, unfollow. So be it. If purity is that important to you, I'm not your man. I'm not a purist. Okay, I just get through life the best way I can. I read and I watch and I observe and I put it back out there. I'm no pure theorist. Never have been. Probably never will be. Deal with it. And on that, the biscuit. Until next time, I have to.